Karina Pollan, present. We have quorum. I would also like to note, for the record, that, who are the alternates that are here? You please just raise your hand, state your name.
Kevin Troy.
Kevin Troy, Alice
Ho.
Ho, anybody else? All right, makes it easy. Is John Dorsey here?
Not here.
Nope. Okay, now for agenda one, is to consider the minutes from March 27, 2025 Executive Committee meeting, which were included in your packet sent prior to the meeting. Was somebody saying something?
No.
Okay, may I get a motion to approve these minutes?
Motion. Before, I thought was I not present? I thought I was present for that. Yeah. The 27th? Were you present? I'm gonna hold it up, just check. Because I'm not listed on.
No, you can fix that, right?
Yeah, just fix it if it, that's fine.
Okay, motion to approve?
Motion.
Frank, may I get a second? Second, Greg. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposals? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We have a handful of contract items for today's meeting. The first is a Crown Castle extension request to extend the Crown Castle Fiber LLC through September 15, 2029 to continue providing internet and security services. May I have a motion to consider?
Motion.
Frank, may I have a second?
Second.
Second, Greg. Thank you. Steve Sealy? Sevilli.
Yes.
Okay, they spelled your name wrong.
It's on.
Is here to tell us more. Steve?
Well, I guess I would say this particular vendor been with us for the past probably 3 years, about 3 years now. Years. All we're doing is extending the actual contract, providing the same services. Nothing changed, but a little bit lower price than what we had before. So we had to shake them a little bit down and come up with a much better cost on this one. But as far as the services, they're exactly the same, what they've been providing all along.
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Just before that, just key point is this is under a New York State existing comprehensive telecommunications service contract. Elaine, our head of procurement, is here to answer any questions about how that works.
Okay, so it's a rider, Elaine?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. And are we ever gonna rebid and go try to get our own, or is it's best for us to continue to ride on this contract?
It's best for us to continue on this contract because the rates are pre-negotiated, so the terms are in our favor at this time. So we're aligning it with the current end date of the OGS contract as well.
Okay, and then my question is, if we're getting a better rate now, does that mean that they were overcharging us?
Not necessarily. The vendors are subject to adding on additional rates or discounted rates throughout the period of the contract. So this particular contract was extended last year by OGS, therefore the prices were renegotiated and updated.
Okay.
How long? How long we extended?
Through 2029 as of the current OGS contract. So we're guaranteed the rates throughout the contract period.
Just in a rebid, wouldn't there be some competitive advantage?
We
See what
can
else is out
potentially
there.
consider that, but again, because it's at an OGS level, they're the best negotiated rates based on our experience. They're negotiating solely on behalf of BERS.
Basically, we're probably getting a volume discount
Correct.
because it's a much bigger contract, and for us to negotiate our own would bring us down to a lower volume, which might increase the price, is what I suspect is
Yes.
happening. Okay. That's a potential reason to keep riding on that contract if we get a much greater volume, right? Okay. The recommendation before the committee is to approve an additional cost not to exceed $419,852, such that the total cost of the agreement is not to exceed $557,127, and subject to agreement by Crown Counsel. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? The motion carries. The second contract item is an operations staffing analysis discussion to introduce the preliminary findings of a staffing analysis within the BERS Operations Department. Initial results indicate a need for additional staff in areas such as retirement, SCP, and loans based on data since 2018. May I have a motion to consider?
Motion.
Frank, may I have a second? Second, Greg, thank you. Josias Rodriguez is here to tell us more.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Just a second, Josiah, 'cause I just want trustees to know that this presentation is also going to be made at the full board level, because this has implications not only for something we're going to consider today, but for the budget, which is coming in June. So you're going to hear this a couple times. It's not, all yours, Josiah. Sorry to interrupt.
Presentation.
Who's doing the screen? Are you Bertram or? So,
I didn't give you the, I thought you were gonna just bring your present.
Sorry.
So let me know when to come back in.
Sorry.
You have to leave?
Well, because this is the next one.
Want me to email it to Salil? I got it on my phone.
Sure. Siegel.
Second, and maybe unless it's in the packet, second.
Isn't this the analysis that they did?
Yeah.
Isn't this the analysis that they did?
Yes.
The
It's the
firm
updated-
does the different
It's
part.
the updated presentation.
You let me know what you want me to
Oh, you can,
do. Okay.
Not for the next one. Oh, right,
what,
the next one's,
staffing?
Yeah.
No, she's-
okay. Here it is.
Don't tell me secret stuff in there. Okay.
We just want, you just swear you to secrecy.
Oh,
That's all I have.
this is actually not the preliminary.
Oh, no, this is the, no, so I don't have it, yeah.
I just sent.
You sent it to me? Okay. So,
You have the original version, it's been updated. I just sent. Yeah, probably loading. No. They can upload it to SharePoint?
I don't know. It'll probably be fast. It's just taking it off the email.
Yeah.
It's odd that it's taking that long to download.
It's a large file.
Wait a second.
Let me just send it from my desk.
Your presentation, what's up?
Oh, yes.
You were on top of it, Soraya. We're making a note.
I thought you were also, said you were also gonna share, so I could,
Flash drive.
you have the flash drive?
All right. All right, Soraya.
If these come in after.
Get some remedial
They
IT
have to-
training.
You ready for
Someone on the share.
Have to provide it in time or share? Sure. Seems to be a consistent issue.
What?
Seems to be a consistent issue.
Of you arriving late? Of you arriving?
Yes, that's.
I heard that's what you did yesterday. And she got you good.
Everything you're at.
Oh, I thought I won't go over to
Thanks. So I just downloaded, because it'll take too long. Oh, anyway, I got it.
Okay. Thank you.
Just notice every year this tape.
Wait, to upload that.
8 years.
Good luck.
We all presented.
Still downloading?
Oh. How are you?
So damn good. It should be illegal.
I mean, he could just share it from his computer.
Great shit.
So while it loads, I'll just flip it over. So over the last couple of years, Sandy requested that we develop a staffing model and operations. We developed a very high level macro staffing model where we looked at the volume of transactions and the effort or the production that it took for staff to process those transactions going back to 2018. And we brought in Siegel to help us develop a more technical, sophisticated version of that model where we we created profiles of members of who does what and when do they do it. So we could look at more from a detailed standpoint, project out the work now that we have, there's been a huge increase in membership. So while the deck loads, I just wanted to give some background on what it is that we did, how Siegel helped us. And Siegel has looked at less than half of the operational units and made recommendations, conservative recommendations based on their assessments of those units. Where we see, for the most part, they have agreed with the high-level macro model that was developed internally. And Siegel's help has been extremely valuable because we can take the methodology and the model that they've helped us develop and apply it to our day-to-day reporting and business intelligence so that we can continue to monitor this data and look at our staffing levels and make sure that they're appropriate to the work, not only as projected, but on a day-to-day basis. Allison sent you an email with the file.
Oh, she did? Okay. This is not working.
The file is large.
So is it, maybe better to share directly from that computer?
Just a couple things to paint some background picture. We have been accumulating data on the productivity of individuals for almost 10 years now. We track nearly everything on a monthly basis. About a month ago, I shared one of our monthly packages on productivity that comes from our data analytics group, David Bridwell. And if anyone wants to see that, be happy to share it again, but we have extraordinarily detailed productivity data that you can boil down right to an individual.
I'm sharing for you. Let's go on screen.
Thank you.
And this is compounded by auto enrollment, chapter 551. This is something we'll have to watch for the next 2 or 3 years. Our staffing is going to go up.
Are we looking at these models to understand what is there a service level agreement on the work? Like, it's one thing to monitor individuals' performance. It's another thing, because obviously person A can have very different performance as person B. Is there a service level agreement around what is expected? And are we applying the staffing model to the expectation?
Yes, so we look at it on a micro granular level for individuals, but we also look at it at a macro level where we look at for teams. And in operations, we have 2 sub-departments, and we have our own expectations, but we also follow CEM benchmarking, which benchmarks us against similar or comparable public pension systems across the country and also in other parts of the world.
Okay.
So the objective of the staffing model was to look at operations and to be able to sustain high quality service now that we've increased membership from auto enrollment. We were doing this even before auto enrollment, but now because of what we've already put in place and with Siegel's help, we were able to look at the changes from auto enrollment. There was an increase of membership of a little over 80%. We'll go over that later on in the presentation. The high level assessment so far, the recommendations are that we need a total of 10 additional headcount in operations, and we've assessed less than half of the units in operations. We've continued to, over the last 5 years, we've restructured operations. We've looked to optimize operations and introduce efficiencies. We do not believe that staffing is the only answer to looking at workload. And the next steps that we have with Siegel's help is we're going to complete the work across all operational units. The methodology that was developed, we're going to apply it to each unit, which that may look different because the work is different for each unit. And then we will look at how the downstream effect this will have on other core business functions or departments at operations to see if they will need more staff as well. We're not going to do a staffing model for them, but we just want to look at the downstream effects of adding staff to operations and how that would increase production and the workload for other areas. Next slide, please. So we want to highlight some of the work we've done over the last 5 or so years. The loans portfolio, we cleaned up the loans portfolio. We reduced it close to half. It was over 10,000 loans that we cleaned up. We had to do a lot of work, manual research, and also clean up hundreds of thousands of payments, make sure that we were in compliance and up to date and that the portfolio was accurate. When we did that, we increased staffing there by 500%. When we first took over, when I was first put in charge of operations and looked at loans, we had 1 dedicated staff member in loans. Currently, right now, we have 5, and then we have a supervisor. While we were cleaning up, we went as high as 8, I believe, in loans, and we utilized overtime because we still had to deal with the day-to-day of processing loans while we were cleaning up the portfolio. This is more, it points to effectiveness, as it was very hard to gauge what was the cost savings here. But what I will say is that it helps with processing downstream work such as retirement, death benefits, transfers, things of that nature, where there's a lot less loans to look at, since now we have a more accurate and up-to-date loans portfolio. It also helps with having accurate information on member statements, less phone calls, people coming in about loans that now that they've been cleaned up. The second area that we want to focus on when it comes to efficiency and optimizing operations is pension payroll. Pension payroll, we've implemented automation. We use a vendor to death match batching services that we run monthly. We were able to identify close to 1,500 annuitants that were being paid, that were deceased. This was years ago, and which totaled $8.5 million of overpayments. And we are working to recoup that. We project that because of the automation and the things that we've put in place, that we are saving about $4.25 million yearly, because we are now not, I want to say, we are able to identify deceased annuitants within a month or 2, where before it was more reactive. We needed to get the information from the survivors' families when they reported the deaths. Now we're getting that in a proactive basis. We increased staffing in pension payroll as the board approved an additional 9 headcount. I believe it was 2 fiscal years, a couple years ago. We increased that unit by 2, which is we doubled the staff there. We went from 2 to 4. But the amount of work in order to continue to do these proactive measures will require more staff. Now, we haven't done an assessment of that area, but we wanted to point out the efficiencies and the benefits, the cost savings benefits with what we've done so far there. So we're committed to operational excellence and to looking at staffing from a measured, data-driven standpoint. We again do not believe that staffing is the answer to everything. And we we are not a for-profit business, as everyone knows, so we need to be compliant. That's really what we look at. Compliance with the New York City Administrative Code, with New York State Retirement Social Security Law, and also with the IRS code. So there's certain things that, yes, we are introducing efficiencies. We're looking to streamline the process. We want to save as much money. We have fiduciary responsibilities to the members, but we also have to be compliant. And that's where staffing, sometimes optimization is not realistic, and you have to look at staffing. But these two cleanups and efforts that we did over the last 3 to 5 years just point to the work and the dedication that we have to optimizing, being more efficient and more effective. Slide, please. So the scope, when we brought in Siegel was going to help us again develop a more technical and sophisticated model for each of our units, so we can look at staffing more closely and do a deeper dive. And after they've done that, we will look at the downstream effects that it has on other areas of the organization. This is just the methodology that they helped us create, where they look at the transactions on a deeper level, and they created those member profiles of who does what based on how much service they have and what age they are. When do they retire? When do they take out loans? When do they buy back time? And things of that nature. So we were able to look at it closer to project out the work. And membership has increased. We see the numbers there. Again, it's close to 80% increase. And we projected out membership for the next decade. That is one aspect of how we projected out the work. Our membership also became much younger with auto enrollment, where we enrolled over 20,000 members. The majority of them were under the age of 40. So this is the projection for membership for the next decade. It's an upward trend. This is a very conservative projection in my opinion. Some internally, we've had discussions where they say that, the student population is going down, so maybe hiring will also go down, but the governor a couple years ago signed into law that they want to reduce the ratio between students and teachers.
Reduce class size law. So we have to live into that each year. It's a 20% compliance on reduced class size. That's correct.
So the law it focuses more on teachers, but in order to reduce the classroom size, they need more space, and they're looking to get more schools and more buildings. So we feel that will also result in more hiring support staff, which is more of the members that we represent. So again, me personally, I feel that these numbers are extremely conservative, but they're still on an upward trend. This is looking at our staff to member ratio. This is something that CEM uses to benchmark public pension systems, depending on the size of the public pension system. And if you see from fiscal year 2024 to fiscal year 2025, there's been a substantial increase in membership. There's an 82% increase in active membership. There's a 49% increase in total membership when you look at the retirees, when you add them to active membership. And what I wanted to point to was that from a very high level, in order for us to return to the ratio, the staff to member ratio that we were in 2024, which I feel that was where we were seeing production going up, where things were getting better, we would actually see an increase of 39%. It's an additional 66 staff. I'm not saying that we're asking for that. I just wanted to show these numbers. In operations, we're only looking at operations right now. The assessment only says that we need 10 people, but I wanted to show what the numbers would be if we would return to staffing levels that we were in the previous fiscal year. And also, if anything close to this were to happen, since we've already projected the membership is going to continue to increase, these numbers will continue to change year after year. Whatever number we get the total staff to, they will continue to change and show efficiencies just from a very high level. when it comes to this aspect that CEM uses to benchmark public pension systems.
I have a quick question before you go past that.
I have a question back to before, just the 1,500 or so annuitants that you collected $8.5 million for. What category would they fit into this? Active members, retired members?
They would fall under retired members. So these numbers, if you look at our CEM benchmarking or our financial reporting, these numbers are lower for the retired members because when we did the cleanup, which was last year, when we identified the close to 1,500, some of those data deaths were in previous years. So the numbers here are the corrected numbers based on that cleanup. But in our reporting, those numbers were slightly higher. So it actually, these are numbers as of today that when we cleaned up the annuitants section based on that cleanup. Going forward, those numbers are as accurate as they can be because we identified deaths again within a month or two.
So I want to ask a quick question myself. I noticed in 2025, you have a staff to member ratio of 1 to 456, which is much higher than, and then you go back to 1 to 328. Is that because the 1 to 456 has shown as shown some negative impact, or what's the justification in order?
The 2026 is just, it's a comparable, so we just added more staff if we were to get more staff next year. The reason why it changed so drastically was because of auto enrollment. The active membership increased by almost 25,000. So now,
This number jumps up.
No, I understand that, but I guess my question is it working at the 1 to 456, or is it not working, which is why we're going back to the 1 to 328?
no, I would say that it's not working right now, even though production is up, it's up because of the additional 30 headcount that were approved by the board in the previous, and that was before we looked at future work. We're gonna look at the projections of how the workload is gonna increase over the next decade or so.
Okay.
So what we're doing is proactively, we're looking to the future and we're saying that we need this staff because I'm not saying again 66, I'm just saying just to show for comparable purposes. But when you hire staff, the onboarding process takes time, the training and development process takes time. From my experience, it takes about 2 years, 2 to 3 years. I'm not saying that there's not immediate impact because the 30 headcount that we received as an organization less than 2 years ago, already we see impact. We saw it within 6 months to a year. But in order for them to do more complex tasks and to do a lot more, it takes time for them to settle.
So let me ask you this.
Also, one
This is
quick
interesting.
thing, if you look back, right? When Sam and I took over in 2016, our head count was 87. So that ratio, the first number was 1.48 almost. A lot of backlogs were within the staff. We were seriously far behind. That's when we started coming to the board for more headcount increase efficiencies. As you see the number going up and the ratio going down over the years. And what's occurred with all the enrollment, basically back where we started,
Yep.
in 2019.
Yep.
So we're behind the eight ball again. And also, loans are not factored in yet because you can't take a loan until you're 1 year post membership. It hasn't kicked in yet.
Yep.
SCPs are not until 2 years after membership. So all is coming down the pipeline. So see the ratio go up in 2025, but we haven't seen the full impact yet
I got you.
in operations and the pension fund itself.
That's the question. That's the answer I was looking for. Got it. You have a question?
Oh, well, I wanted to hear what you're gonna say, but a slight check-in with mentees and my fascination with pipelines. These staffing agencies stuff, they suck. They're actually quite awful. And I guess this is, one of the situations where we also have to start looking at who is doing the hiring. Because to my understanding, and I'll, go through a lot of different pipelines to see how things function. And I'm like, okay, Tilda, wow, that's pretty interesting. It's almost like a bad dating app. You want all these qualities that are so unreasonable. And then we go back to the work that we do, particularly in NYCBERS, working with Black and Brown folks. And it doesn't seem like they're a part of that process when it comes time to understanding who needs to be hired. And I think, and I'm just, again, I'm a gap closer. I look at the things that, you know, some people don't look at. And so, again, unless it's being, you know, I don't know what the process is with
No,
in-house
absolutely.
hiring.
Our
Oh,
hiring is
okay,
in-house, it's in-house here at BERS.
okay. In-house hiring, okay, and,
And
We have
governed
staff
by civil
here.
service.
Yeah.
We are governed by civil service, so we can only hire people that the city says are ready to be hired because they've been tested, approved, cleared, and on a list.
okay, so you
So
know it's
we're-
horrible.
We can't
Okay.
even, it's one of the remarkable things about our PTO audits, when they ask us, well, where are you hiring these people? We're hiring from the city as off the list. We can't manage the flow because the flow is dictated.
And for EEO, we have the same questions for each hiree.
Yeah,
There's no subjectiveness to it, really.
yeah.
We get numbers on who we hired by gender, race, ethnicity,
Yeah.
every year reported to the city. So that's all documented, reported, and standardized.
Yeah.
So
And it's driven by the DCAS pipeline.
I get it,
Yeah.
I get it. I guess my point to that, and I get, you know, again, it may be far reached. I think that we need to start looking at some of those algorithms. We really do, in regards to, what and who is impacting the community. The same questions that we do when we're talking about investments, we also need to start looking at in the hiring process. Because I would rather pull from somebody who actually is more connected with the community than somebody who's not connected with the community. Again, going back to, you know, what is investing in the system that invests in you? Whose kids are participating in the system, going to school in the system, who's understanding the system? And those type of questions are not asked at all. So the system is pretty awful. And I think, you know, we need to challenge that, or at least raise the question or something, because it does impact the hiring process and how, you know, how slow and long
To
it
that
takes.
point, I'm a product of NYC schools, social size. Most of our management team are born and raised New Yorkers, public schools. So we definitely take that into account. That's why I work here, really, because these are my people that helped raise me. So
And to that level, is that this fund has the highest level of minority employees?
we have majority
Minority.
women management staff, majority women, and majority minority.
But that reflects the membership, right?
Yes.
That's the reality. Can I ask a quick question? Did you, go ahead. Simon.
Reflects the hiring pipeline is
Yeah.
what it does.
I was just, I could only speak to operations. So in operations, yes, we're limited to the civil service process, but what we've changed the way we hire and the way we develop people, we actually focus more so on the entry level and we develop them from within. And we speak to with Daniel, our experience, you know, how we are connected to the members, how we were basically raised by the members because we lived here, went to public schools, and they understand that everything that we do it for the members. So we don't really look to hire people who are a lot more experienced. We want them to,
You want to homegrown them.
correct. The
And I
same
was
way,
feeling that. I was like, I feel that that's the tone and the proof that's in BERS. I guess I should have said it, you know, across industries and different,
Systems.
you know, systems and stuff like that, because it is different. But, okay, that was it. That was basically what I wanted to ask.
One last point, our leadership team basically is all homegrown. Cindy's probably the only one that came from outside.
We gotta fix that. We gotta fix that.
You know, I started at BERS in 23, decided to make Dwayne started at BERS, you know, Sharon was at BERS before she was general counsel, head of fiscal ops, internal auditor, all started out as analysts, entry level here at BERS, all of us. Maria Sepin was a temp at the front desk, so
So we retain people when they come in?
And we promote them.
I've been here 21 years, besides what you doing now.
It's extraordinary, but I mean, in
Yeah.
general, do we?
Half my life has been at BERS.
I recommended someone 20 years ago that still works.
Say that again?
I recommended someone 20 years ago that's still working here.
Can I just ask a quick question? As we're having these conversations, it's obvious that we're gonna need to look at our staffing model as the membership grows. But then that would also say, I would say, from a financial perspective, are we looking at our assets under management relative to the staffing model and seeing that we're within a certain ratio, a percentage, right? So if we have 20,000 more members, then that means our assets under management has gone up by some percentage. And then that staffing percentage, there's gotta be, I don't know, a range that's within reason, just like you're doing the staff to member ratio, right? And so that's one thing I haven't seen yet. We should be looking at that, because again, I think right off the bat, there's gonna be scrutiny around when you're spending so much money and you have all these staff, but it has to be aligned to the increase in membership and how much more money is coming into the fund, which your percentage of staffing should be close to the same or about the same, and if it's not, justifying why and why the change is happening.
I'll give you a preview of the budget. That's gonna be in June. We're estimating the budget will probably go up about 30% next fiscal year. And we doubled our membership 65%. So we're not even going 1-to-1.
That's not 1-to-1, that's the
With
point.
what we were
Yeah.
asking for in the budget wise.
Yeah.
And a lot of those numbers are gonna not be spent next fiscal year.
That's right.
Even though it's gonna be in the budget, we're playing out for a 3-year period.
Yeah. And there's a forecast, it's a timing around the spend. So you may have a budget that's of $1 million, but the fact of the matter is, if you have 30 people you have to hire, you're not going to hire them at the beginning of the year. So that's discounted throughout the year through the forecast.
And our budget rolls back into our, what do you call it?
So we haven't really, I know we discussed in the last board meeting, the impact of people being able to opt out into UFT. I mean,
I think it's 250. I've done
Yeah,
39.
okay, that's good.
Last Friday.
That's good.
So the numbers, yeah.
And how do those numbers compare with?
PRS sees about 551 as of, so it could be they see
Take a
further
risk,
down the pipeline, but it's gonna be it's gonna be a de minimis percentage in our,
And that's capped out too.
That's figured into all of
Yes,
this.
December, mid-December.
Are
And
they still OTPT types?
Yes,
Yes.
Predominantly.
Predominantly.
Yeah.
predominantly.
It's important for people to understand what it means to have a budget and to have actual spend forecast, right?
Right. Right.
I mean, you have to have a budget, but the reality of spending that budget throughout the year, timing and forecast will start to reduce that spend. But you have to plan it out, because at some point, if you don't have the money, you can't do the hiring that is necessary.
And I think you made a good point, is that in terms of a comparison with the other systems, our price to run these systems is it,
Go up because you have more people.
well, but some of the other program systems are larger.
If we go back to this
We-
right here, real
are we-
quick, your point, Greg, about we just reached parity with police last year.
Yeah.
That it took us about 8 years, because we have the same amount, or we had the same amount of active members. But at one point, their budget was 6% more than our budget, same amount of members. We just reached parity before the enrollment. We're trying to get back to parity basically now after the enrollment,
Because of the,
because of the increase in membership.
And I think, Daniel, I think you had mentioned this before, that the nature of our members
more
require
transactions.
more transactions.
Much more.
And I think we need to constantly emphasize that, because that's gonna be the justification when the increase in staffing and payroll. That's gonna be a constant, and it's gotta be laid out with numbers.
That's CEM benchmarking.
So the
Yep.
the
Do it every
next
year.
slides actually speak to that. When we look at CEM, I would say we really have no comparables because of the transaction volume is so high. And what it is that we do is our membership demographics are different. It's very hard to compare us to other public pension systems
So let me ask you this, is that just within the city or is that across the country?
Nationwide.
nationwide.
Most public pension funds only have full-time members.
Yeah, don't
We're
look.
one of the few that have
It has
any
part-time
part-time members, and the majority part-time members.
Charlie
Probably
Hughes.
not countrywide that has that, I would assume.
So when you look at our retirements, when you look at pension inceptions, we are an outlier. We handle this very differently than the other retirement systems. And the reason being is because our average pensions are under $1,300 and the majority of our pensions are $750 or less. So when police and fire department can take over a year to finalize their benefits and pay their retirees a fraction of their benefits while they're finalizing, and teachers take 6 months to a year to finalize their benefits and pay them, let's say 60% of their benefits, their members can afford that. Our members cannot. Currently, right now, we pay 60% of full-time benefits. They're finalized in under 30 days. There is no disruption in pay. And in order for us to continue that, at least to continue it, we need one more person in the retirement unit. And we're going to continue to monitor this. The goal, CEM says that we should be paying out 70% in 30 days or less. And what all of the other public pension systems in the nation do is they pay out a fraction. Our members can't afford that. So we pay out full benefits.
I think that's the answer right there too.
That's-
When we're hit,
Yep.
because we're gonna be hit, we'll look how much it costs to, I think that's the answer to really highlight that.
Can I ask about the 8.5 million of overpayment to the deceased annuitants?
Well, what happened was that, that was a historical issue where there was a reactive approach. We now have a proactive approach. We have preventive measures from that happening. Before, and I think it was 2021 when the controller audited us. Before that audit even this came up, we were already working to address that. But with procurement and things of that nature, we needed to bring in a vendor to help us identify deaths. It took time. It took time for us to clean that up. Again, that was a historical issue that doesn't exist today.
Where'd that money go?
Well,
It's a good question.
the staff, the reason why we need so much more staff, this really is the reason, pension exceptions, is because when someone retires, there has to be a full audit of all, everything up to that point. And what we're doing is we're putting more staff in every area to make sure that we're being proactive in every area. So by the time somebody retires or God forbid passes away, we want to process benefits as accurately and as timely as possible. Where before, as Daniel pointed to, we were so understaffed historically that we could only take a reactive approach. So we're basically transforming the way that we work, at least in operations, and it's totally different now. We're trying to meet the members' needs before they even know what their needs are. We're putting in place a proactive approach. But in order to do that, we need more staff. And in operations, we've taken a very measured approach. We've only increased staff by 10 over the last 3 to 5 years. Now is when we're asking for a lot more staff because we wanted to implement a robust business intelligence, a staffing model now that we're finalizing so that we know exactly how much staff we need and where we need it.
I'm just curious where there were checks going out to people who were deceased.
State funding and state missing funds, maybe.
If we're lucky,
It goes.
where does that
Well,
money go?
we're
So we
recouping that.
recoup it.
Oh, that's what I'm asking, yeah.
So we are actually in the process. This creates a lot more work.
Yeah.
The recoupment process, us identifying that, us having the proactive measures we have in place now, it's more work for fiscal operations. There's more work for our legal team because there's a process in place. If it's direct deposit, we can go to banks, we can recoup the money going back 15 months. Not many of them are more than that, but if it is, we have to now, there's a process that requires multiple teams to work towards that process. And we actually are putting in place a recoupment, not just process, that's in, but that we're managing all of the recoupments, that we're making sure that we're getting those funds back.
Yes.
Two questions, just in terms of how Siegel Marco is working with us. I know Siegel.
Siegel Marco, Siegel Company. Say
Okay,
it.
that's what they said. No, that was actually my question. That was my question. I didn't- Siegel has a
Clarify.
robust benefits administration program, so we're working with that side of it. Okay, I was curious about that. And then, and the other thing is, I sit for Greg at the TRS board, and there was a lot of discussion about AI within their client-facing process and in terms of FAQs and stuff like that. Are we using any, do you see AI being utilized in our systems at all?
I can't speak to that area of the organization. In operations, I could only speak to operations, I oversee operations, but,
I think there's opportunities for technology integration. I won't say intervention, I'll say integration.
So Leo, see if Donald's in the waiting area for the meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
try to get
I'll
in.
check them.
well, I would say that we are using
How
technology.
does that work?
In operations, we've already implemented a lot of different things through CPMS, our system that we now have. We have used batching, we've developed batching,
Working on it.
automation. We're also using vendors like to identify these steps. So we are using technology. We're still looking at enhancing our technology and introducing as much automation as possible. But what we see
But we're
again,
still
if
talking
we're gonna
about
be
staff,
proactive,
and
we
you're
need
gonna
more
get
staff.
full of that at the board meeting.
We spoke of retirement, now this is service credit purchase.
Okay, all right. All right, Donald, thanks.
No question. I mean, y'all were late to the, like,
He's not gonna
late
try
to
to
the
get.
party with the, just getting everything on, up to speed as far as getting things automated. So and that's in the past, right? So now that you're here, what approach will you take with the AI? Or do you think you're gonna be the last to the table with that?
I don't necessarily think so. There's things you can do with AI, but AI is limited as he asked, when it comes to, for us, we're developing an operations, a performance management and also a training. We're helping our learning and development where we want to create not just FAQs, but to speak to Siegel, we brought in Siegel years ago to help us develop SOPMs across operations, standardized operating procedure manuals, and to help us identify pain points and also bottlenecks to streamline that process. When we started documenting all of that, there's ways that you can use AI to help you house that somewhere. And if someone has a question, they can help train staff. I can't speak to dealing with membership, but we can enhance the way that we educate, develop, and train our staff and bring them up to speed. But we have to first get all of the information from the staff, what it is that we do day to day. I'm not saying they're working on that today. I do think that in the future, we will be working towards that.
I think it's much bigger than just AI, right? It's the idea of how are we leveraging technology overall to increase efficiency and effectiveness of the work? Because
That's pretty much it.
in technology, compared to an individual, it's not a one-to-one. There's places where you must have staff. And then there are places, once you have the staff and you've created the system, then you should be leveraging technology in some way to support the staff. It's not a replacement, but it certainly is. There's got to be some model where, there are people that must do this and the people are using technology to be more efficient, right?
So I think it'd be helpful if we can have, you want to say something, Sandy?
Go ahead, Seba.
Well, just a point, understand that the vast majority of all the systems that support our operations are provided by third-party providers. Call center, we're actually working on a new procurement on that. CPMS, which is Vitech, and we are contracted to Vitech. As they develop these tools, we automatically get them integrated into our system. So we are reliant on third-party providers. And just recall that DOE prohibits the use of artificial intelligence within their environment, and we are within their environment for most of our systems.
Not just the
probably true.
DOE.
Copilot, well, they blanked out Copilot on my Outlook.
Yeah,
But-
so let me just say something, because I'm living this right now.
Yeah.
I think within a contract, and the AI is just one piece of a much bigger
Right.
discussion, so let's not lose that. Within a technology contract that leverages AI, as long as it has the right firewalls and security, they're not gonna block that out, because we're doing some implementation right now that includes AI as a tool to support the work that we're doing, right? So the point I'm making is, let's not get stuck on AI. Let's figure out technology and the integration of technology to support the work that we're
So
doing.
to that point, board voted a year ago on the new the contract where every 18 months, we do get upgrades automatically of technology.
You get it
You wanna
all.
add to that?
I wanted to add to that. So when you look at CPMS, our system, comprehensive pension management system, we went live with that in 2017. It cost us $52 million. CEM says that on average, it costs $250 million. So there we saved money
Yeah,
there.
a bundle of money.
And we're using that. And I'll use loans. I brought up loans. We cleaned up the loans portfolio. It went back 40 years of bad data. And we cleaned it up in 5 years utilizing CPMS. We added automation through CPMS where now we added batching. We're able to identify when loans are in default. We're able to distribute loans. We went from 1 staff to 8, and we went back down to 5 in loans. But what we didn't take into consideration is that now that it's cleaned up, to maintain a
Right.
clean
Go back.
loans
go back to
portfolio.
before. Yeah.
even though we added automation, I think we added 5 different batches to identify, to communicate certain things to members. We underestimated the effort it would take because we never had a clean loans portfolio in the past. So we looked at technology, we looked at automation, and we still need more staff.
Let me ask a question. You're heading the
I was
technology. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that just the technology by itself will not do all the work
Of
that
course.
you're actually expecting to do. But this deal of the AI is just a tool like any other tools. But the only thing is that having to introduce or integrate AI within, especially within organizations such as BERS, you run in also a lot of risks on that. So it really depends what AI that you're looking at. And given what's not just the DOE, but I'm talking about the city in general. City is not allowing AI just to have it say, we're going to run AI in our organization and let it run
That's right.
and do the work. It's not. Today's not permitted
Okay, let me ask
within
you,
the city, within our AI.
how big is your technology team? Or your IT?
We have a very small team. So that's why we're looking more for
Physical
physical
right now.
headcounts.
All right.
So as you can see, Josiah has been calling for adding staff. So it's just like a waterfall.
Right.
Yeah, add staff, we have to add staff.
The reason why I'm asking that is because a lot of times we are, I feel overly reliant on third parties to bring us solutions. And if we have some internal expertise in technology that know the work and understand the work, they can also help to better identify opportunities for technology to support operations, right? We have the same issue at DOE. We don't have a big staff. Everything is outsourced, whatever. So my point, and then as it relates to AI alone doesn't solve anything. But AI integrated into technology solutions, I'll give you an example. We're using a new company, and one of the requirements was that we were able to have AI take on some of the roles that the staff was supposed to do as part of the bigger implementation and integration. And so instead of a staff having to write, 50 reports, AI helped them to create a template. And as they were feeding it to AI, AI did the work, and then the staff reviewed it. So instead of me having to write 50 reports, I now can review 100 reports that was supported by AI. So I don't want to say like AI is the thing that people hold on to, because with lack of understanding, you don't have the right expectation. And so to your point of just, so AI can be embedded into some of the solutions that we're getting as a support material and not just as a standalone. But I do think that as these things begin to grow, because a lot of the things that I'm hearing, there are some banking rules and laws where some of this work is already happening in a way once you build it, how you sustain it. And some of it is manual staff, and then some of it would have to be technology. That's all.
We're investigating it, Corinne. There's a regular meeting with the general counsels of the city and state funds, and we have a meeting tomorrow. And AI and the use of AI is on the agenda. So I'm very interested to kind of see what other systems are doing.
We're always looking at how to
Yeah.
implement technology.
It's just
All
technology.
enrollment basically came about because of technology.
That's right.
It's our data the first time, we saw it, and that the whole thing off. So we're always looking at how to improve tech-wise.
Always being able to look in-house has just been a tone across the board. And also being able to keep data, to not lose it once you stop working with one particular company and you start working with it, and you don't have to start from the beginning. So that's across industry. So, wanted to add.
You think it's gonna change? You mentioned like your transactions take generally more calls or more contact with a member.
Well,
We've set 40% more phone calls and 80% more emails than our.
But this one, is that, do you see that changing with the use of technology? And also, is that an age related?
I will say this, that as we got younger, the effects of auto enrollment, we haven't even felt them yet.
Yeah.
Well, we have our member self-service portals where we allow people to, let's say, take out loans on there. We allow people to do estimations. We're looking at that data, and 50% of the requests come in through the portal.
Yeah.
And as we get younger,
That's
that's
my
gonna
point.
go up as well.
Yeah.
That introduces a lot of efficiency. That's something that we invested in years ago with CPMS and with the portal. The reason why that introduces efficiency, because it removes the intake process. The member goes in the portal and they say, I want to take out a loan. It goes straight to operations. It goes straight into, they come to work, it's on their workflow queue. Same thing with estimations and other things. And we're looking to increase the amount of work that comes in through the portal not just accessibility to the members, but looking at ways that we can increase that because that introduces.
You're right, because I went through that. I just rejected that, any of that. I want to talk to somebody and walk me through it instead.
Greg.
Right
I
there.
think you're right. I think that is, you're right.
So in this case, we are not gonna use AI at all.
No, I
right?
wanted to, you know.
But we,
our
let's make
membership-
sure we hire somebody to take care of Greg.
But our membership, that's why we have such a, that's also, we can't be compared to other public pension systems because our member services department, the amount of walk-ins that they take in,
Yeah.
you don't see that across the nation. They tell us that CM, we see the most people, we have the most walk-ins. So again, our demographic of our
Understanding the
membership.
Profile of your members. That's the reality.
Unlimited visits to BERS, unlimited per year. I remember, they come as much as they wanna come.
What's that?
We allow unlimited appointments. If you wanna come 5 times a year, you can. We don't advise it.
We might start to
But-
charge you, but you can come. I'm kidding.
Most funds don't do that. Most funds say 1 or 2 a year, that's it.
Most funds have the union stick with their members.
Yeah.
They don't even allow members to come in, so they service them. So,
It's fascinating.
service credit purchases, based on the assessment, we see that we need 7 people there, and that number is large. And the reason why is because with auto enrollment, we enrolled over 20,000 members, basically overnight. When someone's enrolled, there's always a lag of 1 to 2 pay periods before deductions start. That creates a deficit. We need to address that. Also, enrollments are up month after month. We see that enrollments are much higher than historically because of auto enrollment. So the number of arrears that we are seeing are very, very high. And not just arrears, but also when people are buying back, we're gonna see that in the next 2 years where people request, there's gonna be a downstream effect. As there's more membership, there's gonna be more requests. And that's why this number is so much higher than loans and retirement. But loans and retirement, we addressed again, when the board approved additional headcount, that operations received 9 a couple years ago, we staffed up in retirement to address pension exceptions, and the loans, we've already been addressing staffing.
Let me ask a quick question. What's your retention rate?
In operations, I would say it's very high. The staff, we've increased staffing over the last couple of years, and we see that people are staying. We also promote from within. Part of the development strategy that we have, the workforce strategy that we have is we hire entry level, and then we show them a pathway where, you start as an assistant, then an associate, then there's a level 2, an assistant to the supervisor. If you're here long enough, you can be a supervisor. So they see that we want to make it the culture and the environment that they want to stick around.
Career.
The legacy, I heard it was the term, the legacy path when you're taking, that,
I'm not sure.
that's a term that I heard recently where you're starting very young and underpaid and staying on to.
I don't know about underpaid, but
Yeah.
Change a little bit because now you're talking about accelerating hiring. You can't hire everybody at entry level to get to, the idea that it takes 2 years to become a seasoned employee that can do some things is a little bit nerve wracking. And if you're having,
No. 2 years for them to do basic
Maximum.
everything in
Ah,
operations.
okay.
They could come in,
Got it.
the way that, part of the development process is that we have to create work. So
cross promote them, you cross
Correct.
train them.
So,
Got it.
they come in, work is simpler, less complex. We want to put them in those teams.
Yep,
And
makes
they
sense.
learn how to navigate our CPMS system. They learn our core competencies or skills that we want them. We want them to be able to do research, to be analytical, to troubleshoot, so there's things that we develop in them, and we need them to be able to do those things. And once they have done that in certain teams, then we move them on to other teams.
The question is how many people stay long enough to reach that 2-year period where you've invested all this training?
More people.
A
I mean,
lot.
it's come down, turnover's come down a lot since the
Because I
pandemic.
remember we talked about this and there was a
Right.
concern about the turnover, that we weren't getting people to reach that
Yeah,
that
we,
level.
I
Yeah.
can tell you the way we think about it, just forecasting, 4% turnover.
That's not bad.
Do we
It's
hire a
not bad.
professional?
But that's,
If there's
you
not a
know,
list for
that's
anyone,
people you have to hire.
If there's a
If
list,
there's not an active list for that title, we'll have professional in that title.
but once it exhausts, you're able to do provisional
Yes.
into the next exam?
So we hire the entry level, the assistant retirement benefit examiner. There has really been a list for a while, so we've been hiring provisionally for a while now. And then as
And
they
we use
move up.
temps too as like a bench to see how people perform, to hire them full-time as well.
So that means you
What
won't.
did our assets go up to with all these people coming on board?
Oh, it was 9.8 as of what?
Yeah,
March?
it's about the same.
Well, you have to understand, the assets grow over time, right? So
Yeah, that makes
we
sense.
rolled in 20,000 people, they're just starting to make their
Yeah,
contributions.
they're not coming in,
So
but
the ACF is just
because
accumulating.
they were non-members, they're not coming from another
Right.
pension fund,
And
so we're
and
not.
the
yeah, I'm not
contributions
thinking
through
it's
the
coming from
budget,
Somebody,
they start feeding in
Yep.
in the next three, remember, it doesn't impact the contributions from the city for a period of years because they average them in. And it's looking back 2 years, so it's like, this will affect 2020, fiscal 2028 budget more than it affects us now.
and so do you have, given the people coming in and the salaries that they have, do we have an estimate of that asset?
As a matter of fact, it's one of the inputs that Siegel uses to estimate the impact and when transactions occur.
So we're gonna,
Yeah.
it's gonna cost us more upfront as a percentage.
It's- it
And
should-
then it should level out when the retirement investments start to grow.
Yes, yes.
Got it, okay.
Matter of
Makes
fact,
sense.
you probably, I wouldn't even think that's a reliable number for at least 5 years.
Mhm.
Just because it takes that long. You know, the actuary, and the actuarial analysis,
Plus
which,
negative
which
cash flow for
merit-
the next few years.
right, and there's tremendous negative cash flow and contributions are actually going down for the city, so that's gonna be a very confusing conversation to
Yep.
people. Because they're gonna say, why are contributions from the city going down so much when your membership is up 60-80%? And,
Right.
you know, it's because there are delays and all this stuff
So
as the
yeah.
actuary smooths everything out.
Closer to 10 years to normalize, based on the two factors.
Yeah, it's an extended period where I mean, you can't. Using transactions is the best way to do it, because you can't really use assets under management. It's misleading because of the actuarial analysis.
Conversely, the people, the UFT members we're losing, that's assets actually coming out, going transferred
Right.
over. So that's.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we're
But it's not that many, right?
we've been
It's
upside down for
small.
15 years.
It's
You know,
like
there's
negligible,
more
right?
money coming out,
500
going out than coming in.
It's not a lot.
292 right
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get a visual. And younger hires don't actually equate entry level. So if you want younger entry level to stick around, you're not hiring older people?
No, it has nothing to do with age.
No.
It has nothing to do with age. It's more so we're tied to the civil service process. It's more title based. The assistant retirement benefit examiner is the entry level. Doesn't matter what age you are. It's
Yes.
if you qualify for that title or if you're on that list.
It's the way they do the test across the city.
Yeah.
And then there's a list for each person. You take the test, you land in here versus here. And then they have to draw down from that list.
So we spent a lot of time on this. I'm gonna interrupt because the reason that Josias and representatives from Siegel are here to talk about the staffing model is to prepare you for a decision we're gonna ask you to make in the next 15 to 20 minutes. Let me just
We got
summarize
like
something
2
quickly.
slides left. Okay.
Okay, I would say, you know, this is detailed. You're gonna be able to present at the board meeting, and I think it'll be more effective. Can the executive committee just accept that we have done significant analysis about what the impact of auto enrollment is and chapter 551, that we have 10 years of productivity data. It's driving a staffing model that our leadership team has built. We've hired Siegel to specifically analyze operations to validate the work that Josias and his team has done, and I'm safe to say it is generally being validated. We are considering extending Siegel's responsibility to do more, but we expect to ask for a headcount number of 60 additional headcount over the next 2 to 3 years. The reason we're talking about the next 2 to 3 years is Soraya. Thank you for being here, Soraya, because we are in the middle of negotiating our lease agreement with 55 Water Street. That expires May 31st, 2026. We may take 6 to 9 months to negotiate out that contract. And so we are asking the executive committee to approve our authority to begin negotiation to finalize a lease contract, which would then be presented to the board for final approval because it will be an expensive lease. It's probably gonna go, well, I don't wanna take any Soraya's thunder. She's gonna let you know.
Just want to make sure I understand. So this explanation here is so that we can vote on a contract to continue with Siegel to support this assessment.
Yes, that's the other thing we're asking for.
So this is the first thing now before we
Okay, so
go on.
let's do that.
Let's do this
I'm
first.
Jumping ahead. there.
So there's no more questions here. So I'm gonna go.
Siegel is here, represented by Mayor.
Yep.
More question for Siegel.
Oh,
They're
hi.
right there.
You've been sitting there awfully quiet.
Conversation is going so beautifully.
Anything you want to add that we didn't address or talk about?
No, I think Josiah said has a very good handle on this, and he explained very much what we did and very much what we need to do.
Well, I didn't know we voted on something.
Okay, no, I'm gonna tell you now.
Preparing your vote
So-
on retention of Siegel.
So the third contract item is an operation, this is the same Operations Department staffing analysis.
Continue it.
BERS is requesting a negotiated acquisition with the Siegel Company, Eastern States, Inc., to develop a high-level staffing plan for its operations department and to access the effects of staffing increases on other BERS departments. So what's been done thus far has been with operations, and we'd like to continue to do the same thing
It's in here.
with the other departments. Correct? Is that
No.
right?
Well, finish operations.
Yes, complete
And
the
then
work and
continue with other
operations.
departments. So, the recommendation before the committee is to approve for a total cost of $93,000 based
that's
on
what
up
I'm
to
gonna ask.
300 consulting hours at a rate of $310 per hour. All those in favor? So, wait, first, do I have a motion to consider?
Motion.
Right? Can I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor? Wait. So we learned about everything. So the recommendation before the committee is to approve for a total cost of $93,000 based on up to 300 consulting hours at a rate of $310 per hour. All those in
Moving
favor
along.
for, it's based on the
300
consulting hours.
300.
300 hours,
Okay.
300 hours,
All
yeah.
right.
So that could be happening in 10 months or 3 months. So it depends how much they use them. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Any opposed? The motion carries.
Right. So if we had 60 head count, it's gonna get very crowded on our 50th floor. Soraya, would you please take
Hold
over?
on, let me read my.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of you, Fran. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the room, Sandy.
I was worried we'd be here till 7.
Shut it down with you. Fourth contract item is a lease authorization for 55 Water Street. Our sublease is slated to expire on May 29th, 2026. The proposal includes BERS taking over the entire 50th floor, as well as additional space on the ground floor for the building to accommodate our counseling staff and walk-in center, all subject to full board approval. Do I have a motion to consider?
So Fordham Road is out.
So moved.
Yes. It's out.
May I have a motion to consider, Greg?
So moved. So moved.
So moved. Who had that one? May I have a second? Would you like a second, Greg?
Fordham Road, I mean, doesn't get cheap.
Can I have a second, please?
Second, I'll say.
Second, thank you. Soraya
Oh, yeah.
is here to tell us more.
Here because there's no poll. On this sort of thing.
She's ready. Come on, girl. Come on, Soraya.
Attention seat. Get out of
Set
there.
up.
What you gonna do, girl? Young lady.
Appreciate you.
Okay, so I know this will be revisited next week, so I might breeze through some things, but first want to start off with where we started from. As you mentioned, our lease here is scheduled to expire May 31st of 2026. We are currently on a sublease, so this would give us the opportunity to procure a direct lease with the Retirement System of Alabama, who owns the building.
Sandy Ridge.
Currently, we occupy about 51,000 square feet on this floor, and our annual rent is approximately $2 million, which is about $39.86 per square foot. There'll be another analysis that compares the square footage of where we want to go and that cost in upcoming slides. So current opportunity. Given that the market has been has fluctuated a lot post-COVID, we wanted to get a start early on scouring the market to see what opportunities were available. And we found out that downtown had a lot of vacancies, and we're actually looking to offload some space at a better cost than prior years. We did also reach out to the DOE to see if there was space available. There is not. So we had to look at external opportunities. The Member Services Walk-in Center is currently in Brooklyn. 2 years ago, we put the counseling center in room 101 at 65 Court Street, and they are currently beyond capacity there. And apart from that, they are separated from the rest of the agency. So I really wanted to look at opportunities of bringing the agency together.
Can I add one thing? And we can't build that out in Brooklyn, and we need more counselors, for all the members.
And we'll talk about that a little bit more.
Can you say that again? What'd you say?
The center in Brooklyn right now, our member service center in Brooklyn, is fully built out. We can't add any more staff or a room there. And now we have 25,000 new additional members. We need more counselors. So we can't build that out any further.
Right, there's no more space to add offices or anything in that space. And then planning for future growth, given that there are immediate headcount requests, and over the next couple years, the total is looking at about 60 additional employees, which might fluctuate or increase. We want to plan for the agency's future long-term growth. And then another area that I looked at is that there aren't really many opportunities space-wise here for like town halls internally or all staff meetings. So looking at opportunities to procure a space that would allow us to do that was something else that I was looking at. Okay, so where we started. In March of 2023, we put out an RFP for a real estate services. 5 firms responded. After presentations and interviews, we settled on Savills, and with board approval, we retained them in September of 2023. Once we retained them, they brought us several architectural firms that we could work with to give us ideas of how we could utilize the spaces that we were looking at to best suit the needs of BERS. And we ended up working with the Schweitzer Group. So they prepared some initial space studies for us to show us the spaces that we looked at, what they could be turned into to meet the agency's needs. So Savills, in their due diligence, they looked at what the space here at 55 Water Street entails, the services the building offers, and they wanted to find alternatives that met the same needs in Lower Manhattan and Brooklyn. Those areas were the most cost effective, as well as they were easily accessible for both members and staff. As far as buildings, they wanted to make sure that the landlords were financially prudent. We didn't have to worry about them going bankrupt and then BERS being displaced. Comparable in quality to 55 Water Street, at least a comparable floor plate to what we have now. And then they wanted to make sure that they were post World War II construction so that we didn't have any infrastructure issues, and as well as well managed, because the services here are pretty good. So we wanted to look at comparable services as well. After they scoured the market, Savills brought us 40 credible buildings. We whittled that down to 8. We went out to see all of the spaces, to inspect them, to talk to the ownership. And then we whittled those down to 3. The 2 alternatives to 55 Water Street were 1 New York Plaza, which is up the street, and then 120 Broadway, which is not too far from here. 1 New York Plaza, pros. The space was built out. They did have large floor plates, and there's a strong ownership. Some of the spaces were recently upgraded. Cons, it is way more expensive, and there'll be a price comparison between locations as well that you'll see in a couple slides. They do not have a backup generator in that building, and we do have one here. And then there would have been significant out-of-pocket costs to build out the space to meet BERS needs. Also, they didn't have any accessibility entrances for some of the spaces, so that was a no-go for us. 120 Broadway, essentially the same thing. The space was built out and furnished. There were 2 floors, one on top of each other, that they would have offered us. They were large floor plates, and they do have strong ownership, but in the same sense, they are way more expensive. There would have been a lot of out-of-pocket costs as far as construction and reconfiguring the space. And then they didn't have a space that would allow for a private entrance for members. So that wasn't, we didn't believe that was the best fit.
They have peregrine falcons.
Yeah, that's right.
There's peregrine falcons that live in the
Live there.
building, live in this building.
Oh,
That's
These have
famous.
cameras on them.
wow. Another aspect that Savills looked into was the commutation analysis. So how long it would take folks, not only BERS staff, but BERS members to get to certain areas in the city. So they looked at Brooklyn, the Grand Central area, Penn Station, and then of course, what it would look like if we relocated Brooklyn staff to 55 Water Street. So for employees coming from Brooklyn to 55 Water Street, there was about a 10-minute variance in their current commute times, so it wouldn't be a great distance. And then they also have timing for the other areas that they looked at. We also took into account all areas of our members, where they live, what transportation would be like for them coming to any of those areas, as well as 55 Water Street. And this is still a very centrally localized location with a lot of transportation assets here. So Savills really went to bat for BERS. They went to the landlords 3 times to get counter offers from their original offer for us. They were able to get the initial year square footage cost down to $44 a square foot. So that is the base rent. And then every 5 years, the rate will increase by $4. Before, I think it was $5, and they got them to bring that down another whole dollar. As well as RSA is willing to invest $11.5 million in tenant allowance for us to build out the member services center downstairs, as well as redesign the 50th floor. So they're covering that cost.
That's
Correct.
built into the lease.
Yes. And if there are funds left over after the renovations, they can convert them to rent credit. So that would go towards the rent here. It was really important to me to centralize the member services center so that it would be in the same space as the rest of the agency, and also provide them with a larger space so that they could see more members and be in a more comfortable space. And then the upgrades that we would be looking at to do at the 50th floor would allow departments to stay together as they expand. And then it would just create more opportunities for staff to work together, cross-collaborate, and overall workflows could be operated more efficiently. Okay. So if we were able to bring the member services center here, we could go from 10 counselor offices at 65 Court Street to 16 here. So that would bring down wait times, allow more members to be seen, give staff more time to spend with each member so they're not rushing, as well as provide the level of service that we believe BERS members deserve. And it would also allow for us to be competitive with other pension systems. There is one in the building as well. So we want to make sure that what we offer in our spaces are comparable to those in the market.
Yes, they were actually, they were just asked, teachers has member service.
Services on site, are they located downstairs as
Yeah,
well?
yes. On the back end of the building, they have a separate entrance. It's really actually very nice.
Yes.
Very nice, yeah, it is nice.
So would we be like next to them?
No.
Our entrance will be on the other side of the building. So if you know where the parking garage is,
Oh, yeah,
it's on that block.
okay.
So they would be able to enter right off the street. So no, we would not be competing in that way.
Interesting.
Be better.
So if I go through this.
So expansion of the 50th floor. So given that we already know over the next 3 years, there's gonna be a significant amount of growth. Being able to take over the whole floor allows me to space plan for teams to stay together. Operations only has about 4 seats left on this side. I've had to move several departments around to kind of support their growth. If we have the whole floor, it allows me to plan for the increased growth, but as well as future growth, not only for operations, but for other departments as well. It would also allow us to avoid hoteling. It's just something that's hard to keep track of, and it can also decrease productivity because say you come in and the seats available are not in your team. Now we're, operating in inefficiency. And then also, we don't know what's gonna happen, but if a 5-day in-office work week ever comes back around, it's much better to be in a position to sustain that versus having to scramble and try to figure out what that looks like. And then also, one of the projects that I wanted to take on, if this is allowed, is expanding the lunchroom. Like I said, being able to have a space on site where we can have agency-wide meetings, town halls, et cetera, would be easily accessible. And then it just is another opportunity for folks to commune together, cross-collaborate in the office. So on the right side of the screen, you're gonna see the top 3 buildings that we looked at, and then the cost for each. So 55 Water Street came in at $3.5 million. One New York Plaza came in at a little over $4 million, and then 120 Broadway was almost $5 million. And not just is 55 Water Street the least price-wise, they're willing to invest a significant amount of money in keeping BERS here and in making the space more efficient. So the chart on the left just shows you, I did say that Savills went back to RSA several times to get the cost down. So the first chart is going to be the first proposal we received in January of 2025. And then on the right, it's the final agreement, well, the last agreement we received in April of 2025. So bringing the cost down by $2 a square foot, you can see it's about $155,000 each year in savings that they were able to get for us.
You mentioned that you went to DOE. Did we go to DCAS also and ask DCAS if there are any citywide buildings that are available?
I did the same.
No, DOE and DCAS.
We went to DOE's,
But why wouldn't we go to DCAS?
I think you should check DCAS, but I will tell you, there's not a lot of space available, because even DOE is renting some space already, right?
Yeah, but I know school buildings that are empty. You mean,
That's not gonna be the case with reduced class size, because we're now expanding.
there are a lot of school buildings that are underutilized. I mean, we just been dealing with that.
Yes.
So I don't think that's a sort of a correlation there.
We can ask, the only things that I ask folks to remember, the cost of a move,
Yeah.
the cost of building out space.
furniture.
Those are up front, but that might in long run. I mean, I'm just saying we should ask.
No, absolutely,
Yeah,
I'm in
just
total
talk to
agreement.
DCAS.
Total
If
agreement.
I can also jump in, based on my experience and discussions with DCAS and identifying space, the assessment period is 18 months alone, and they are in short of space citywide for any city agency, but we can explore it.
I think from a media point of view, we should at least ask,
Okay.
because if they then turn up and say, hey, we had this building, the city building, why are we moving into here when we could have saved, millions of dollars? I think it covers us to just
That's
cover that
fair.
base.
That is a fair answer, and Elaine and I will work on that to see what they have available.
Are there any disadvantages of moving out of 65 Court Street? Meaning, do we want to have
No disadvantages at all.
Has DOE already allocated that space?
I would just say, I was at 65 Court and I bailed out as fast as I could.
Oh.
I'm just saying.
Yes, not.
We've tried to stay there. We've remodeled that place 3 times in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
And when the people have asked, I get the feeling there's more reason to be over there than to come here. That's why I
Yeah.
was
When they retire, they can do their other routine transaction events there.
In the building.
But again, it's
Yeah.
one train stop different, basically.
I'm just asking because when we had this question brought up at
Yep.
a meeting, like, is there any?
I think once members see this space, what it looks like, they'll be fine with being here.
And I think one of the things that we know is always gonna happen is change. That's the only constant. So while we've had some internal conversations, we would definitely do our due diligence in communicating the move to members, over communicating it, website, outreach, things of that nature to make it as seamless as possible. But it would be a hindrance to stay in that space now.
It's just, the one thing is, this is a beautiful space, and perception is sometimes worse than reality, and that's.
Oh, we can send numbers for A buildings and comparable B buildings
Yeah,
and being on this floor.
It's a good exercise, it's a good exercise to have that, and I appreciate all the thorough level of it. It's just, we have to be prepared for that Yeah,
control.
we got lucky in terms of, we have the beautiful space and we're staying here and we can't, and overall, it's gonna be more cost effective. People, but you know, people on the other side always, you know, want to see what the grass is always greener, right?
So we have the
We should be
numbers.
prepared.
So
Yeah, but they're also on 16 and 17 and have views of the back of nothing.
But
So
think about it,
they might try to take the space, you know?
the sublease we got, the sublease we got, should I say, was at around $40 a square foot.
And we're going to now 44?
Correct.
That's not, I mean, you have to consider inflation, you have
Just,
to.
you know, like,
Great
Great
deal
deal,
here. And then the flip side is when we were at 65 Court, we were getting complaints from trustees that we were putting our members in the hall and this and that and how we were treating, you know, them. So wanted to put them in a nicer.
what's the
Same.
utilization here? I mean, in terms of the numbers compared to who we should.
We're at about 75% right now. One of the other things that I would be able to do is repurpose some of the space to create different workspaces for different departments' needs. So that would bring that down significantly, as well as give us the floor plate to grow.
Has their relationship, Sandy, because you have been on this for a few years, and just talking about the move, and it's always like, okay, we're gonna not poke fun, but your stink face is funny.
it is.
Has the position
Jump on guy.
changed with these guys?
Yes.
Yeah, it's improved, I would say. Yeah, so I believe that RSA prefers us because we're a good credit. Retirement System of Alabama owns this building.
Flabbergasted that we're renting from the retirement.
I was going to say, that's the same business.
Talk about,
Yeah.
it, like, I am flabbergasted, like, why don't we own it and they rent from us?
Well, according to the research, he's not giving up this building at all. His legacy piece here.
That's amazing, that's incredible.
But so are they, I'm sorry, for us civilians, the tone of knowing that he or they want you to stay is showing up where?
And a discount price.
In the fact that they have continued to drop these per square footage rate here, the fact that they're willing to give us $11.5 million to build out, and no other landlord has made offers like that.
Okay, so we're more than doubling the space, right? Between-
Yes, between
Percent.
taking over the rest of the floor and then downstairs, yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Yes.
so you're on
So
that
the
side.
downstairs and it's
The
more
other door that we
They're
accidentally walked.
sublease,
and it's
their sublease ends the same time as
75%.
ours, so they would be
So,
vacating the premises if we were to take
Yeah,
that one.
if you look at it, we're paying $2 million for 50,000 square feet.
So I'm 75% increase for double. the space
If we stayed in this spot, under the new terms, it's gonna go to 2.5 million.
And $11 million.
Another $800,000 gets us the other part of the floor.
Downstairs.
No, then another 300,000 gets us downstairs.
Yeah.
So if the board, because you can't, this group can't approve the lease, you can release us
To
to
continue to-
finalize the lease and present to the board.
We just wanna be negotiating and.
Yeah.
So moved.
Right,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
let them know upfront, and this is
So
going to
what do
be
you-
subject to board approval.
Nothing,
Gives
he's gonna
us
wait,
effectively
like,
the ability.
can I please have order in this room, or you'll be asked to vacate the table?
We're gonna get her a ballot. You need a ballot.
And gavel
Of the movie theater, please turn it off
All right, so, any other questions?
No.
Thank you very much, Soraya, you did a great job.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
And all the due diligence. The
Oh,
recommendation before the committee is to authorize BERS staff to begin negotiating a lease for 55 Water Street based upon the landlord's proposal dated April 11th, 2025. All those in favor, please.
This is coming, wait, I thought this was coming to the board next week.
No, it's the negotiation, it's the authorization for them to continue to negotiate, and then the full lease negotiated will come to the board.
Although, so just to be fair to Greg,
Should be fair.
I fully intend to tell the board at our next meeting what we expect to present to them in 6 to 9 months. Because if we get a bow wave of negative commentary, I don't see how we could negotiate. right? I mean, we have to have a sense from the full board that there's not gonna be a torpedo in this proposal, right? We need that. Because, I mean, time goes by fast when it comes down to going to the law department.
And I would also say, Greg, the other consideration is also, we're authorizing them to continue to have the conversation. Doesn't mean there's no authorization that it will happen, but we have to allow time for that to happen. I'm thinking about what happened with the transition of a new consultant. Like we got caught up against the wall, given what happened, and we don't want to make sure we do that, okay? So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Two good presentations.
Great job. Good job.
All right, y'all, we gotta speed through this now. I can get out of here. We have a final contract item, which is a share file extension. These licenses were formerly covered under contract Citrix service. However, these were recently sold. The request will avoid disruption of service once the current Citrix contract expires in June and allow time to solicit via an RFQ for future services. May I have a motion to consider?
Motion.
Is that Frank? And then second by Tony?
Yep.
Steve is here to tell us more.
I don't know what to say more about that. Well, this is a tool that we've been using for quite some time. It's over 5 years now. When we started using this tool, it was free. It was part of Citrix. And now Citrix obviously decided to offload it to another vendor. And that vendor happens to be, actually, we have a contract with them, which is Progress. So now we have to pay for it. We need to pay for that, this share file. The share file has been, again, utilized here in the organization. It's a great tool in terms of sharing of files, whether internally or with the outside world. It has a much better built-in security into the platform. I would like to have it continue in that process. We don't want to move to another kind of a tool that provides probably similar services at a higher cost or maybe less kind of security. And the employees and staff that we have get used to it.
I have a couple of quick questions. Seems like a lot to go from free to 54,000, and it's not included in the contract we already have with this company.
No.
And there's not an existing share file.
No.
That exists that we can leverage from a relationship with like DOE or anybody else.
No. DOE has a different kind of, I guess, a vendor for that, but that's not a share file. They don't use a share file.
Okay. Any questions? So does that mean we need to do a new contract with this vendor, or is this just gonna be an increase of the existing contract?
It's a new contract.
It's a new contract.
It is a new
It's a new contract to bridge us through while we get an RFQ in place.
You're
and
gonna-
then
you're gonna-
solicit it.
Okay, and how long is this bridge for?
It's gonna be a year.
A year, okay. All right. Any additional questions? Okay. The recommendation before the committee is a negotiated acquisition with share file premium for a value of 54,000. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Motion carries. On to the next thing. Next, we have introductory comments by Innovation and Risk Department led by Salil. May I have motion to consider?
Post.
May I have a second? Thank you, Salil.
Sure, thanks. So I'll be brief.
Sure.
Especially, well, I can make it briefer if you want. It's just, in terms of performance, just a quick update. We've taken PESA offline, it's just an internal for the time being. There was identified some specific managers where the feed was not being calculated correctly at the source at MSCI. So they're going through and adjusting it, and it affects some returns from 4 years ago and earlier. However, it does never impact the aggregate level returns that we show, including the month-to-date proxies. So I'm going to show this, for the next couple of months, and it, just summarizes some high-level returns just over a shorter period of time. You can see over the last 1 year, BERS a little over 10, around 11%. You can see the 5-year numbers over here, BERS, around 8%, and then versus, if we had the PME strategic asset allocation weights versus if we just did a 70-30 global reference portfolio. And that's it, that brief.
Wait, where are we? I don't even-
It's towards the back end of the packet.
March, till March.
This is through April. Well, I calculated in on the 3rd week of April, and so it would reference the end of March date.
What's your feeling? What's your general?
No, that's it. I was just giving you a sense of this numbers are. You can see, just focus on the long term. And then, yeah, I mean, there's differences partially because of the equity markets. Speaking of the equity markets, we know that markets have gone volatile at the start of the year, Trump, tariffs, all this. Since our last meeting, the executive committee meeting, markets, stock market, US stock market fell an additional 10%. Could have been scary. It's recouped that. So the last meeting, we're at 5,600 in S&P 500. We're still in the 5,600 range. So even though it plummeted down to 5,000 at the nadir, it's gone back up. These are just things to maybe sometimes ignore the intra, meeting volatility and focus on maybe the longer term.
Well, just finesse in general. I mean, it just seems anecdotally that we don't have these prolonged dips, that the nature of the algorithmic trading of the markets is that the hole gets filled pretty quickly by the algorithms. And is that the sense from you guys?
You have to think about what's causing.
Right. So it seems to move on geopolitical stuff and then gets filled by the computers, fill the hole.
Yes. And typically when, like right now, what we experienced in April was not necessarily a market dislocation in terms of something is wrong with the market itself. It was a reaction to, tariffs and general domestic geopolitical environment that we're living right now. And typically when there's a dip as fast as we saw in April, there's typically a recovery that tends to be fast paced as well. I would say that, what we recommend our client is concentrating your asset allocation, keep it as close to target as possible, because that's where, any deviation from your target allocation, those are unintended risks that you're taking in the market. And then really consider what are the needs for benefit payments, because the last thing that you want to do is you need money, but the market has, gone down significantly, and then you're selling assets at these depressed values, right? So we tell our clients, have a buffer into what you need and raise that a little bit more than than last year, for example, where everything was so positive.
So.
And we have a disconnect in target versus current asset allocation,
Cash flow
right?
is being sold sometimes.
Yeah,
out
I
of
think
these assets.
there's a conversation to be had about this. So a couple of things. We're way under our US core equity allocation by 6 percentage points. We're way over our private equity allocation by almost
4.5.
6 percentage. Okay, 4.5%.
Private equity. Yeah.
Private equity. This is a problem. This is a problem. And compared to a month ago, the news is private equity is having problems raising new funds. If half of old purchases are sales to new funds, that's a weakness. Merger and acquisitions market is slowed down and the IPO market slowed down. We sold some of our private equity exposure in a secondary.
Estimate
Didn't
0.2.
impact the allocation.
Yeah, only 0.2%.
Didn't impact the allocation. So we're still way over allocated and negative cash flow. And we're almost 30% leveraged as a result of the TDA. We have a problem, and don't be misled by the reports that BAM sends you.
Because they adjust.
There was no adjustment to the asset allocation approved by this board. None.
So you're saying,
You need to-
but
so-
you're saying they're adjusting it without our approval?
Well, they do
In
an
the report.
they do an adjustment of the asset allocation based on the overweights and underweights of your portfolio. When you read asset allocation, you should always read actual versus target without an adjustment.
Right.
Because an adjustment is something that has been created by the market,
Right.
not a active decision by a board or, you know, in this.
So he should be giving us the actual and not the adjusted.
Well,
And fluster.
the question is, what does it mean to our first future decision-making? For this board to approve any new private equity exposure, I think would be a lack of fiduciary duty. Personally, that's my personal opinion. And two, it's likely to get worse.
We should not even be looking at them, or if they're,
No, we have to look.
I mean, there could be a great opportunity, right?
Want to keep the firms that we
Yeah.
are interested in, is a possibility, but
But, you know, we're way off of target asset allocation. There should be a rebalancing, or the board should decide that they've adopted new asset allocation. Because I would, you know,
Private equity is.
if I was a private
Yes.
equty consultant, which we don't have one currently, recall, you know, I would advise that. You need.
How soon do we
to
get the
that.
new, consultant in?
So it's in the law department. Yeah, it's the law department is just killing us here.
So that's all waiting for is the contract to come back?
Yeah, they're negotiating.
Yeah, we've gone through a couple of cycles.
so in the PE side, we're not getting distributions like we ought to. The firms are not distributing. Now I'm hearing that a lot of firms are actually borrowing from private credit companies to make the distributions they can.
Right.
So we're
leveraging our.
Right, so we're
positions.
increasing leverage on these portfolios, and we're taking money from one of what's been our best performing asset class, at least last year.
So,
And we have committed pipeline of funding obligations which haven't hit us yet. Right? Because we approved private equity in the last couple of years. They haven't drawn the money yet.
Wow.
So this will get worse. And we have a pipeline of private equity proposals that's coming at us from BAM, which we, you know, if I had a vote, I'd say no.
so so Anash canceled, last minute.
Oh, we did, yeah, I was
For
gonna
this
say,
meeting.
we're gonna do secondary.
But the net asset values obviously were at a discount different than what you guys had discussed back at the December meeting. And that's only for
25%, right?
22% off of already reduced net asset values on the secondary, the selected sale. But the overall private equity net asset values have gone up only because the ones that have been marketed and sold at a huge discount is being offset by,
Yeah.
you know, a smaller segment.
And, you know, Corinne's not wrong. I've actually been on panels recently and said that the problem that we have is we can't consider the new generation of PE funds, which are coming out of a different environment and will actually prey on the old ones and get, you know, and so we won't be able to have money in those vintages, because we can't unless we reevaluate our asset allocation and push the limit on the basket.
It's just crazy to me that we have firms that are not dispersing cash on the level, on timely basis, and then they're gonna still come and ask for the next vintage or allocation to the next. vintage.
Business, Tony, come on.
You know, I mean, and you guys understand, I mean, secondaries with the, okay.
It's a conundrum for us because, you know, this may undermine our PE performance for the next decade. And just recall, I mean, summary numbers, I mean, I was looking for the report from BAM. If you look at the long-term numbers, core equities were up 12%, PE was up 15%. Last 3 years, core equity 12%, PE 5.
And PE
So,
numbers
you know,
for the home
PE is dragging us.
It's,
I sent the memo to the committee about what's the estimated impact on returns post the adjustment, the haircut. So there is obviously
you're gonna have a number.
an immediate
Yeah.
reduction backward looking.
I mean, this is a discussion at all different conferences as well, just the future of PE and what PE is looking like. And my private credit seems like where everyone is, why influence is lower now.
Well, and
I don't know what the answer is.
once you pay 15% for private credit, it's hard to generate 15% on the equity underneath it.
It's, I said this in 2012. I was 10 years late. 10 years early.
10 years early, you were
10
right.
years earlier, I was right, but 10
You're
years
right.
early.
It took a zero rate environment to sink it.
Right.
And that's what we're writing out balance sheets that were financed at 3%, and now they have to sell into a 12% cost of funds market. Well, maybe it's not 12. Maybe it's 10, but
Okay.
it's still a lot more than 3.
Leak,
Um,
leak.
Any final questions? Now we begin agenda 4. We have a discussion item from the executive session.
Now she canceled.
Do I have 4 executive sessions? Excuse me. Do I have a motion to enter into executive session? Do I have a second? Of all,
Okay, great.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
okay, so I'm gonna skip this altogether.
I think it's.
Move it to- Yeah, I'm trying to see now. There's nothing else on there?
You asked me to, you can do it, but you asked me to.
Okay, so, we're gonna, can I get a motion to go back into closed session? So move second. All right. We will now, Salil will now report out from the executive session. Salil?
We had one partial discussion of, an analysis of the excluded securities list. I just want more.
All right. Questions? Oh, are we done?
That's it.
All right, this was the last item on the agenda for today's executive committee meeting. The next scheduled executive committee meeting for the Board of Education Retirement System is Thursday, May 29th at 12:30 PM. May I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Yes.
Greg, second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any abstentions, any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you for everyone. Have a good afternoon.